We're going to start from the very beginning again. Hi, this is Logan Grendel, and this is the Focused on Infinity podcast, or stream, depending on where you're listening to this. Welcome back. Let's talk about it. Today I wanted to talk about why I'm kind of fine with the idea of being an alarmist. I have been for a long time. I feel like it's one of those things that, we have this sort of cultural idea that no one wants to be too excited about it. No one wants to be too alarmist about it, to use the word again, about anything, right? Everybody wants to be calm and take everything calmly and look at a situation that's unfolding and be able to say, okay, there's something. What do we do about it? And let's think of the best way to do about it and a measured way to handle it. And I want to talk about why that's both a terrible idea and it's wrapped up in some other things about our society that really aren't that good. And it might seem like kind of a stretch to some of you, but I think it's partially connected to, misogyny in a lot of ways, and also in anti-blackness and in white supremacy, basically in anything that is against let me just say this. I saw a meme recently that said, people say have some class a lot, right? And when they say have some class, what do they usually mean? What they mean is act like a rich white person. That's largely what that means, right? And even in, just within race, white people get on poor white people all the time for being supposedly uncultured or uncouth or crass in some way, right? And a lot of that is based in, these cultural norms where you're just supposed to be just calm and chill all the time. And now going back to these sort of, to the idea that's wrapped up in misogyny, partially, well, any strong display of emotion, right? That's something that if you're a culturated male, you're taught at an early age that that's not a good thing, that it's unacceptable, that it's not something you should do. And why is that? Right? Why? Why not? If you feel something, you should express it. That's honestly the healthy thing to do. That's why emotions are there, right? Emotions are a release valve for the things that are happening internally, whether it's tears or whether it's shouting or you just need to run around. Now, I'm not saying that every time you feel like you want to bang somebody again, upside the head, that you should do that. Obviously not. But all emotions are valid. And most means of expressing your emotions that do not involve hurting someone else are also completely valid. But there's a heterogeneity. Nope. Homogeneity, not heterogeneity, a homogeneity that is desired from people, especially in public spaces, but especially in like Eurocentric public spaces, right? There's a big cultural meme about how when you go to a movie theater in a black neighborhood, that it's too loud and people are talking back to the screen and like, why won't these people just shut up and that kind of thing. But like, obviously there's a time and a place and a kind of movie, et cetera, for everything, right? But if it's an exciting movie, if someone says something funny in the movie, if something funny happens in the movie, why did you go to the fucking movie theater if you wanted it just tomb silent, right? There's a cultural experience, a social experience of going to a movie with people and being surrounded by others who are experiencing the same thing as you. I thought that was part of the point. So why do you want to go into a movie theater where everybody's as dry as a piece of toast and it's like a wry chortle when something funny happens? You know what I mean? Like, just, everyone in the crowd, like, and that's it. That's the extent of the laughter for something uproarious. It's a little ridiculous when we really think about it. And we sometimes don't think about those cultural tropes and why it's based in something that is, desperately unpleasant, right? It's really unpleasant to think about the fact that, why is it that black people are seen as uncouth for dancing or for being exuberant or, any sort of vital display of emotion. So, it all ties together. I guarantee you. But so you have a little bit of misogyny because you have the hatred of anything that is perceived as the feminine, and that's the emotions and the display thereof. And, even we call it when someone's crying, we say they broke down rather than that they're letting it out, right? And it's even in the language that tears are something that is something that's supposed to be quiet and hidden and not something you should express in public. Just one strong manly tear when your dog and your whole family just died. That's all you get. And it's beyond ridiculous. It's actually really harmful, and it's inhuman, right? I mean, there are stress chemicals in tears. There's I'm not saying that everything has to be mechanistic and we have to look to biology in order to see what's the purpose of it. No, we don't have to do that, but there's a reason that the mechanism of crying is built into humans, whether for joy or for pain, right? When something extreme is happening that gives us a certain feeling, we need a way to release it, and it's good for us. And so tying all those three things back into why I'm okay with being a so-called alarmist. Now, as those of you who have heard my my podcast know, I am an urban prepper, and I'm not like a major, heavy duty, I'm not like insane about it, not to use, I don't think insane is good language to use, but you know what I mean. I do it in a way that I think is reasonable and logical. I think that you should just have 3 months of food stored up, 3 months of canned goods, right? That seems a relatively reasonable goal. And to me, it gives me more peace of mind than having a bunch of money in the bank that I will not be able to access if a real catastrophe jumps off, right? Back when everything started with COVID and everything shut down and my business basically evaporated overnight, I was really thankful that I had a bunch of food stored away, because I was just well, whatever happens, I have some time to just adjudicate things, figure everything out, and not worry about what I'm going to eat, right? And that just reduced my general stress level, because obviously, if you know where you're going to sleep, what you're going to eat, and the basics, you have less stress. That's why being poor is so hard. That's why it's so hard to come out of homelessness. And because, having your basic needs not being met, it means you can't think straight about anything else at all. So, and there's lots of people who, they were like, what's all that stuff? What are you doing? Why do you have that? And back in the day when you had to go far to get your food, or you had to, get it yourself, basically, everybody stored as much food as they were physically able to store, right? We have this notion now, and I mean, and it's not really, our fault, because we are wrapped up in this consumerist society where it's we are made to expect that all the stores, that everything's just going to be running at all times. It's just all going to keep running. Don't worry. There will always be stores. There will always be a place to go get food as long as you have the coin forever. Right? We are taught basically to count on the system maintaining itself, and a system where we can just keep buying every day. That's supposed to go on eternally. And I mean, if you really think about it, the idea is, I mean, it's just ludicrous to think that we should be able to count on any system, any government. All empires fall, right? There is no human civilization or way of life that is permanent. There is no place that cannot be touched by catastrophe. There is no time when you should feel like you're just going to definitely be cared for by someone else, right? And obviously, I believe in the social networks, and I believe that we should always help each other when we can. And that's one of the other reasons that you should prep a little bit, right? Because if you are in that position, if I say somebody I knew, there was a hurricane and New York was flooded terribly like it was, during Superstorm Sandy, I could house someone, right? Or a couple of people, and not worry that I was cutting into my own storehouses, right? That I could happily house someone and feed them and be like, we're good here. Don't worry about it, right? And that's it's not just for me. It's also so that I have enough. You can't pour out of an empty cup, right? Fill your own cup up first, and then you got something to give someone else. And that is also part of it. There are those people who have like the big bunkers, like where they, take a shipping container and they dig out the ground and they put the shipping container in the ground and they make an entire, understructure with ventilation and all that. And like, that's a little much, right? Because I'm not trying to live in an underground bunker for 20 years while, the nuclear storm passes overhead. Honestly, if in that situation, I probably, I will risk myself in order to help other people, because what good is it if I survive alone in a bunker, just slowly going mad? Like, what's the point in that? But to have enough that I have, a nice buffer to figure out my next move, that just makes sense. And so being an alarmist, it kind of ties in with that, right? Because I believe that something bad could happen at any time. And I am willing to say that, and I think it, and I believe it. Right. I believe it because it's true. It's just true. We have this notion that things are just going to always be fine. And that's just not how it works in the world. Right. And so, prepping is kind of another alarmist thing. So now let's bring it back a little bit more towards right now. And let's cut back to, 2015 and late 2015. Donald Trump is running for president and people think he has absolutely no chance. And lots of people thought he had absolutely no chance. I think maybe even he didn't know if he had a chance or not, right? It might have just been a fundraising scheme. It might have just been for fun, for shits and giggles, whatever. Who knows? But in thinking about how Americans love popularity, how Americans love perceived outsiders, even if they're lying, how Americans love, a charismatic actor type. People forget Ronald Reagan didn't start as a politician. He was an actor. He was a well-loved actor. And of course, I always say Trump is Reagan 2.0. He's like so similar to the way that Reagan rammed things to the right hard. And Trump has done a similar thing. One could argue not as far even as Ronald Reagan, because we didn't have as far right to go still to get to where we are today. But he's more cartoonish about his right wing insanity, and the way that he demonizes people. And, we don't need to go into him. And people who loved Hillary, who I had some of the worst political arguments I've had, where it was unproductive, where it was just vitriolic, where it just was nasty, was with Hillary supporters in the primaries and thereafter. Because I was a Bernie supporter in both 2016 and 2020, which I feel like as a person who is, as I don't like labels, but definitely in a perfect world, I would say a libertarian socialist, but the term libertarian has been so thoroughly co-opted by the right that, people don't realize that libertarian socialist was where the term libertarian was coined, that it was originally a left-wing ideology. But anyway, I don't believe in really the legitimacy of America, so to speak, but I do believe that I had to go for the person who was willing to call himself a socialist, that was willing to just go for it. Anyway, yeah. And so I did. And so I was like, yeah, let's try it. Why not? And America is a deeply right-wing country, and Hillary she's a right-winger. It's not like, that's not an insult, right? Because the RNC is far right-wing and the DNC is right-wing. And when you just consider all the policies and you consider all the things that they do, all the things about them, and basically the way that they interact both domestically and abroad, right? Both parties are okay with over militarized policing all throughout the country, especially for some people. That's right-wing ideology. Austerity, and no understand. We need to get into MMT one day and just talk about how, like, every time someone says we don't have the money for something in government, it's just straight up a lie. It's just a lie. And I'm not going to go too far off on that, but look up MMT, modern monetary theory, and learn a little bit about it. And we'll do a stream on it at some point. But anyway, so yeah, and in terms of militarism abroad, I mean, both parties, lockstep, both parties give all the money that the Pentagon wants every single time, no question, right? So basically, both of the main parties in our country are right wing. So I'm not with any of that, right? So I wanted to try and go as far to the left as we could get. And listen, Bernie is barely left wing in any other country, right? So whatever. So to come back to, to the main point, I thought Trump was going to win. And it was because, for two reasons. I thought he was going to win the Republican primaries because the Republicans actually have a more democratic process for selecting their candidate than the Democrats do. The Republicans don't have superdelegates, right? So they don't have as complete control over their process as the Democrats do. As one of if there is anything good about Republicans, it's that, right? And that's how he managed to get through. Trump got through because they couldn't stop him. And the opposite happened on the Democratic side, where they were like, we're shutting you down, Bernie. We're not going to let you do it. And the fact that it's even arguable that that's what happened at both times is proof that we still have so much work to do. In just educating people about how our system actually works and how the two parties are basically the worst thing to happen to any notion of democracy here in this country. Ranked choice voting, people. Ranked choice voting and a new party. Ranked choice voting, you can enact it state by state. Don't have to do it nationwide, right? So you just get some ballot measures state by state, ranked choice voting, you get a new party. It could be done by the 2024 election. It's totally doable. I mean, and people who say that it's not aren't even considering that a similar thing happened with the origination of the Republican Party and Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln in the 1850s, on the ashes of the Whig Party, created the Republican Party, and they had the presidency. Like, not that long after they started. And if you think about how much more difficult it would have been to start a new party and to get the word out, et cetera, back then, I mean, it's amazing that it happened, right? And it shows actually just how deep the rot was in the Whig Party and how much they had just gone away from the people. Remind you of anyone? I mean, that sounds exactly like the Democrats. He did win. And then it was a whole time when people were just like, okay, well, he's not going to do this. Well, he's not going to do this. And we just kept saying he wasn't going to do thing after thing, right? Oh, he's never going to ban people from certain countries. And then he did. And then, oh, he's never going to lock kids in cages. And then he did, right? Everything we kept saying was not going to happen, happened. And it kept happening so slowly and incrementally that we just got used to it. We got used to it. Some of the things that we're just used to it now. And there's a lot of the things that have been put in place that he didn't even, they haven't gone away, right? They're still in place. Like the ban from, the Muslim ban, essentially. There's a bunch of countries where you just can't come here if you live there, right? And that's out of control. It's out of control. So would we have been better prepared for something like Trump to happen if we had been like, wait, hold on. American democracy is really fragile. Our neoliberal policies, the way that our country is run, it's like really close to being fascist as it is, right? There have been bands and there have been music for as long as I can remember, from before my time, where people were saying, you know what, America is a place that we're doing the shit we're doing all over the world. And I am a black person. So if we had been more prepared for what was going to happen, or the potentialities of what could happen, if we didn't believe so much in the norms and forms of the country as it stands, we would have been more ready to fight against it, rather than just seeing things happen over and over again and being like, no, that can't happen. I can't believe that happened. And playing from behind. We keep playing from behind, and we've been doing it partially because we have all been trying to be too cool to overreact. If we had been prepared for what we thought was going to happen, right? If we had in place mechanisms, and when I say mechanisms, I don't even mean just like by voting. I mean, we were used to going out in the streets. We were used to being like, you know what, we're going to have a strike. When the Muslim ban happened, we could have literally shut the country down. There was a lot of protests, and honestly, that was good. That was really good. I can't say that it wasn't, but we could have done more. We should have done more, and we didn't. We did the protests, but the thing is, we were protesting to an administration that knew what they were up to, that had no more. By the time we got to the Trump administration, the ability for us to really affect the government by protesting, and I mean the federal government, because protests on a local scale, you can still get some stuff done. But federally, in order to do anything with a government that is this antagonistic, you have to actually shut shit down. And we're not really ready for that. We're not really prepared for that. We don't do that. And even those of us who agree with protest are pretty quick to be like, yeah, no, you know what? I like protest, but I don't agree with how you're doing it. Right? The way you're doing it is just, no. You got to be calm. Somebody's saying something I don't like. They're talking about pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon, right? Like, free speech. You can say whatever the fuck you want to, right? You can't say, I'm going to kill X person, because that's a direct threat. But you can say, I like killing people all you want to, right? Even if that was the chant in the crowd. Like, don't be a policeman. Don't police protesting. It's ridiculous. They have literal police for that, as you have seen from coast to coast, right? Police beating the bejesus out of protesters, whether or not they deserve it, right? Whether or not they deserve it, they've been getting it. So because we are, all trying to be calm and believe in the norms of America, right? We have been playing from behind this entire time. We keep playing from behind. And every new thing that happens, everyone acts shocked, as if there's just no way that could have happened, when the writing was on the wall, right? When black people, when women, when immigrants could have told you that everything was in place for the worst to happen, and that most of it's legal, fully legal, and corruption, forget about it, right? It's like we can't even be alarmist about corruption because corruption is so rampant that it's basically just the way things are. It's like we can't even call out like Joe Biden's kid getting a job that he didn't deserve, right? And I'm not saying there's something corrupt like a quid pro quo kind of corruption, but that's just regular ass nepotistic capitalist corruption. And in a just world, that would be unacceptable. But in this case, no, it's not, right? It's fine. And it's the way that we think things are supposed to go. It's ridiculous. So now we get to now. Let's bring it back to now. The current conversation is, what's going on? Is there going to be a coup? Is there no coup? What's the deal, right? What's the deal here? I think that they're going to try it. I don't know if they'll be successful, but I know for sure they're going to try it. And even some people, I listen to sometimes. I saw when I was scrolling by Sean King being like, no, it's not a coup. It's just a grift. It can be both, right? Of course, dude wants money. He always wants money. Not Sean King, but 45. I'm not getting into the Sean King debacle here. Of course, Trump wants money, but it's not just Trump. We're forgetting about this. We got Stephen Miller. We got Mike Pompeo. We got Bill Barr. We got Mitch McConnell. These are all people who want power over anything else. And there's a saying, power never takes a backward step. Are they willing to make it easy for a Democratic president to take over so that they will have to step back a little bit in the power that they've been able to accumulate? No. And why would they if they don't have to? Because there's enough levers still in America that they can actually take control with a coup. Right. And whether it's faithless electors, I don't think that's going to be the way it goes, but it could be. I think it's going to be I think they're going to get some governors to refuse to certify the elections and just do enough to get Biden below 270 votes. And then it goes to the vote in the House. Read the 12th Amendment on the subject. Right. And the vote in the House, as I've said before, 1 vote per state. It's not a vote of the entire House. And that would be a way that they could take it. Now, why is it okay to be alarmist about this? What is gained by being calm about it and just waiting to see what happens? What is gained by not putting together an affinity group right now, by not putting together a bug out bag, by not doing a little prepping, by not taking just some basic steps, right? So you're not caught on the back foot when and if they actually do a coup. When and if we actually have to get out into the streets and actually do a general strike and shut it down. What is gained? Except for, some sort of manly sense that, yeah, I saw this coming and I wasn't scared. I ain't never scared. I didn't flinch. I knew they weren't going to be able to. Who cares? Who the fuck cares? Right? What is gained by not preparing? What is gained by not being a little bit alarmist about something that very well could happen? And I think we need to consider the fact that, as I said at the beginning of this, some of the reasons that we defend this bullshit, right? This notion that being too excited and being shown to flinch, right? Those are notions that don't help us. Those are notions that don't help us keep each other safe. These are notions that help reinforce the status quo. These are notions that help keep things exactly as they are, right? So let's think about this. Would it help if we waited until after December 14th? Because don't forget, like I said in the last episode, December 14th is when the election happens. I know we want to think that our casting our votes in November is when the election is, and it is to a certain extent, right? But that's not really, legally, the election is on December 14th. Our votes only, and that's one of the reasons that they can play so many funny games. Biden looks to be winning the popular vote by about 5 million votes. And I guarantee you it's twice that many. Because we've also forgotten about the fact that there was so much suppression. We knew there was going to be suppression going into this, right? We knew there was going to be massive, massive suppression because that's the only way that they can win, is by suppressing the vote. That's the only way. Of course, Biden was going to win, if it was fair, right? Because more people than not are absolutely sick of, at very least, the chaos, right? But on the other side, both candidates got record turnout. They got the number 1 and number 2 highest voter turnout in American history. So if the coup works out, even if it doesn't work out, if the people who have been threatening violence, if they do indeed do some violent acts, right? Or large-scale violent acts. I mean, we know that the police unions, New York, the NYPD, for the first time in a long time, endorsed the president and they endorsed Trump, right? We know what they stand for. We know there's a lot of factions in this country that want to stop what they call white genocide. Why then are we trying not to be alarmist about the fact that at least 70 million people in this country are, if not actively in league with, are completely okay with white supremacy, right? With, at very least, the chaos and the corruption and the rapaciousness that Donald Trump represent, if not actually believing he's a fascist, which I do. And if not him personally, his administration, whatever. Let's not split hairs, right? And I want you to think about this. What do you gain by, quote unquote, remaining calm? What do you gain? What do you gain by not looking at the people who are most concerned and saying, I'm going to address your concerns just in case? Right? And no one's saying, and no one, when we say we should be, when I say alarmist, I don't mean being panicked. I don't mean being excited to the point where you can't act. I mean, be alarmed, right? Be forewarned, be prepared, be alert, be ready. Because there's no circumstance, even if he does just slink away into the night, even if he, eats a cyanide capsule rather than face the shame of actually leaving the White House, right? Whatever happens due to COVID, due to the economy, there's so many things. There's a coming food shortage, right? All of the things point to the fact that there's going to be drama. There's going to be massive, major drama. What's the point in not being alarmed? Right? What's the point? And for some people, I know it's positivity, but to me, it's a kind of toxic positivity. It's a kind of like everything's gonna be all right kind of positivity. Because when people say, anyone who says everything's gonna be all right, if they're not also saying it's gonna be all right because we're gonna make sure it's gonna be all right, because we're gonna do the work to make it all right, then what they're saying is completely meaningless. What they're saying doesn't help anyone, right? Things aren't going to be all right just because, we throw our hands up to the sky and say it's going to be fine. No, we get prepared. Things will be okay if we make sure that they'll be okay. If we lay the groundwork, right? Things will be okay if there's a rainstorm, if before you go out in it, you've made sure to have some galoshes and an umbrella. And that's why I say we should be okay with being more alarmist, especially when faced with such erratic situations, such peculiar circumstances, right? Such a dire environment in which just about anything can happen. Because, even those of us who really want to remain calm and just want to think that Biden won and that it's all fine, you feel it. Right? You know that this isn't all okay. And we're still walking on shaky ground. And I think you want to just make yourselves feel better by just saying like, you know what? I just got to believe it's going to be okay. No. Don't just believe that it's going to be okay and not do anything to make it okay. You've got to be sure that it's going to be okay. And the only way to be sure that it's going to be okay is if you've done something about it. If you've believed in yourself and the people around you, and not sort of fatalistic positivity, where what you're essentially saying is whatever happens, happens. I just think it's going to be fine, right? No. What you say is let's strap up and get ready, and then I don't know if we're going to be fine, but whether or not we're going to be fine, we're going to be ready. Because, and I don't have any kids. And I don't plan to, especially given the aforementioned world that we live in. But I don't feel like I can ever promise a child that everything's going to be okay, right? I can promise I will always do everything I can to protect them. I can promise that I will always try and be prepared for any eventuality. I can tell them that I will work my hardest. I can tell them that I will do just my best in every possible regard so that things will be okay. But to just say, everything's going to be okay, that's just a lie. There's no way you can know that, right? at the risk of being viewed as pessimistic, because I mean, I'm actually a very deeply hopeful person. The reason that I do the things that I do is because I believe strongly that there's just some things that some people don't know, and that, you know, just getting more information out and being able to discuss things more, et cetera, et cetera. I believe that we can make change. We can change things, right? I believe that we can, you know, I don't know about a revolution the way that, you know, it has happened in the past, but I know that we can educate people and push people and rev them up and ignite them so that we can do much better than we've ever done, right? I know that we can do that, right? I know that we can do better. I know that. And that comes from a place of hope. But it doesn't come from a place of just believing that everything's going to be okay. Because I've seen enough from this country and from humans to know that if we just leave things up to the, you know, to the whims of the wind, the worst possible people will have their say, right? People who seek power will grasp it. And we need to be as strong in saying, you know what? You can't have power. You don't deserve it. We're going to take the power away from you because the way you wield it is unconscionable. The way you wield it is grotesque and damaging, right? So I think that it behooves us to look at the way we look at the world and the way that we react to the world and not police ourselves in saying, you know what? I feel a certain way. I'm going to express it. I'm afraid of this thing. Let me do some things so that I'm prepared for it if it happens, right? Anyone that has, look, if you believe everything's going to be okay, right? Why do you have health insurance? Why do you have car insurance, right? Besides that you have to, but you know what I mean. Why? Because you know things can happen, right? Is it alarmist to say, be careful because you could get into a car accident? Is it alarmist to say, drive carefully when the roads are slick? I don't think so. Is that alarmist? I don't think so. I think that's just reasonable. So when you have someone in office who's refusing to leave, who the people around him are saying things like, we're not going anywhere, we're going to challenge this, we're going to have a smooth transition to another term, despite having lost the vote. That was Mike Pompeo who said that. When we see signs that there's a slick road ahead, is it alarmist to say that we should do something to be prepared for it? Or is that just reasonable? What do we have to lose by learning some first aid skills and having some cash, a go bag, and some extra things stored away? What do we have to lose by getting to know a few of our neighbors? What do we have to lose for building an email group of people who we know have the same political beliefs as us and are willing to do what is required, whatever that means? And I won't say too much more than that. It doesn't hurt us at all. And it's probably something we should have done anyway. So I'm gonna wrap it up by saying this. One of my favorite Ani DeFranco quotes is, "If more people were screaming, then I could relax." And in this circumstance, though there are some people who are essentially screaming, like myself, who are essentially screaming, this isn't done, this is a dangerous situation, and we can't relax, we can't celebrate yet. Most people are not. Most people are just, and I'm compassionate, I understand that most people want to go back to some semblance of normalcy. I get it. But we're not there yet. Okay? Most people want to just they want to plan their next vacation and just pretend that coronavirus is just going to go away. It's not. Right? When, at the beginning of the year, when some of us said that this was going to last until 2021, people said that's ridiculous, and or they just didn't want to hear that. Was that alarmist? Or was that just trying to prepare people for what appeared to be, based on the evidence, the reality that was coming? So, I leave it to you to decide. Right? But I will say this. Whatever you think is going to happen, our country is in dire enough straits. The world is in dire enough straits that wherever you think your level should be in terms of responding to it, kick it up a notch. Because that's probably a little closer to where we need to be. I think it needs to be much higher than that. But wherever you are, kick it up a notch. And at least we could maybe agree on that. Even if you won't get all the way to alarmist, just a little more preparation will go a long way. Thank you so much for listening. I have been Logan Grendel. You can find me on Instagram at FocusedOnInfinity. You can find me on Twitter at WatcherInfinite. And please do follow my Patreon, patreon.com/FocusedOnInfinity, for a lot more of the things that I do. A pretty wide variety. Stay safe. Keep wearing your mask. Grendel out.